Super. All right. Well, welcome everyone to our Great Trails State Coalition webinar series. We're so excited to hear about the new dashboard that is on our website, and Lauren and Michael are going to share with us a bit about the history of that program and how you can use this really amazing data. But first, I'm going to run through some welcome slides to let you know a little bit about what the Great Trails State Coalition is all about. We do this just as a quick orientation for anyone who's new, and just as a reminder, these webinars are free for anybody to attend. We're really focused on having our cities, towns, and counties across North Carolina join and learn about all of the things for celebrating and advancing trails in North Carolina. So our vision is to have all 100 North Carolina counties enjoy the health and safety and economic opportunities, tourism, transportation, and environmental benefits, and mental benefits that we know that trails provide. Success is really for us the adequate and recurring funding for the Great Trails State program, which is a funding opportunity. Um, and to have state policies and programs that support trail development and management, and of course, to have the Great Trail State be a strong brand used by many to celebrate North Carolina, and knowing that you're just really never far from a great trail experience when you're in North Carolina. The brand is really for everyone to use, as I mentioned. It's for all different kinds of people, nonprofits, municipal partners, agencies, industry partners, um, all different kinds of trail surfaces. So natural, water, paved, all uses. So by foot, by riding, equestrian use and paddling. And again, across all 100 counties for elevating the brand of the Great Trails State. We could not do this without membership from our coalition partners and members. You can see here, this is just the nonprofit members that we have, and in orange are our newest members. Thank you so much for your support. We've got a growing number of members, 144 total, and then our local government and industry partners here as our strong member partnerships. And please let me know if you are not a member and you would like no more information. I'd be happy to talk with you about that. And here you can see a bit about what the membership supports in terms of our advocacy and the strong successes that we have had. In 2021, the year of the trail campaign kicked off, or was approved, the funding for that. And that took place in 2023. But we also were able to pass almost 30 million and complete the Trails Fund, which is specific for designated state trails only. So in 2022, we were able to secure a $2 million feasibility study from the DOT, which really helped us understand the connectivity opportunities and possibilities for trails across the state. In 2023, this is where the Great Trails State program was approved and passed. So it's a competitive grant program for all types of trails. It was a one-time money, non-recurring, that was passed, and it also that year we also were able to see 5 million and complete the Trails State again for those authorized or designated state trail program partners. And in 20 last, let's see, that would be 2025. Last year, we saw those grants come to fruition and were granted out in, I believe it's 79 different projects across North Carolina. On another fun success in 2024, we had a state day designated, Great Trails State Day. Every October, on the third Saturday in October, we celebrate Great Trails State Day, and it really helps elevate and activate events and opportunities around trails in North Carolina. We could not also do this work without our agency partners and their support, working shoulder to shoulder on development policies and infrastructure, tourism, all of these different aspects that we know are intersect with trail development and trail maintenance and trail stewardship. We do that in support and with our agency partners. So, this is a webinar series that we host at lunchtime, once a month, a resource for all coalition members and any cities, trails, or towns and counties who want to join. Today, we are talking about the dashboard, and you'll hear more about that Greenway activity dashboard from Michael and Lauren here shortly. And stay tuned in June. We've got projects where we're hearing about how those Complete the Trail funds really helped secure and have partnership impact from the Mountains to Sea Trail. And Bree from the NC Coastal Federation and Ben from Mountains to Sea Trail will be Friends of the Mountains to Sea will be joining us. And then in July, we'll talk about safe routes to school programming, but our funding, but also lots of different kinds of programming for safety and learning about riding your bike and things like that in July. Um, Not to forget to tag us when you all have stories about trails and opportunities for events, because we have a wonderful and growing social media impact, over 20,000 on our Instagram. So be sure to tag us and collaborate with us, and that way it can really help leverage and tell the story of our Great Trail State. Also, we've got merch as seen here on the right, so check out our store to have your brand shared and worn. And we hope to see you out for National Trails Day on June 6th, which is the first Saturday in every June. And my last little tidbit here is to share about our conference. Please join us. This will be our second conference that we host biennially. It's in August 10th through 12th in Winston-Salem. Right now, we've got the awards out, so you can go to the website, which I'll put in the link in just a second for the conference, but you can nominate your trail hero for an award. We also have a call for films out for our film fest that happens as a part of that. And we really couldn't do this without sponsors. So we're so very grateful for North Carolina State Parks as being our presenting sponsor, and all of the industry partners and nonprofit partners and local governments that are making it possible for us to host this conference. Early bird registration ends on May 7th, so be sure to, save a few dollars by heading over and getting registered before May 7th, and we will see you there in August. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing and ask Lauren and Michael to introduce themselves, and I'm just so grateful for y'all sharing today and being here with us. So thank you.
Yeah, can you hear us okay? Great. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining today. My name is Michael Stafford. I'm a senior project manager with the Integrated Mobility Division of NCDOT. I specifically manage the Innovation and Transit Group. Lauren?
Good afternoon, I guess. Lauren Blackburn with VHB. I lead our transportation planning work out of the North Carolina offices, focused primarily on multimodal and safety planning, and pretty much anything that involves data, because I think that really helps make a lot of decisions even better. Good to be with y'all today. I'll give you all a brief overview of what we're going to share, and then we'll get into it. Michael's going to give you some background, as Julie mentioned. Michael's got a lot of history with this and other just overall data collection programs across the country. So he'll give you a brief history about how this data came to be. And then I'm going to go through a demonstration of the dashboard. Hopefully it's going to be a live demo, and we've got some great examples that we'll be able to show you, primarily just to give you all the tools so that you can use it for yourselves. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michael.
Yeah, great. Perfect. Thank you. So a little bit about the history. We shorten the name a lot because it's quite a mouthful. It's called the Non-Motorized Volume Data Program. So if you catch me at a conference, I probably will be calling it NMVDP. But the program began in November of 2013 as a research project to test bike ped count protocol. So we were to be able to replicate it across the state. Since the beginning, the ITRI, or the Institute for Transportation Research and Education, over at NC State has been our primary partner to be able to conduct the work for NCDOT. And the creation of the program was primarily motivated by the need to establish a common, consistent system for measuring non-motorized traffic volumes. We were one of the, I would say, early adopters, top 5 states in the United States to really start thinking about non-motorized volume data, and being able to kind of house it in one location and be able to have many different locations around the state that were being tested. Next slide. So a little bit about the timeline. So good, you can see it pretty good there. So the program started in November of 2013, as I mentioned, and it was broken down essentially in 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 for us started in 2013, but the installs were completed by the end of 2014, by December. And then you can kind of see on the timeline, we started with divisions 7 and 9 because they had, as for the pilots, because they had the most extensive GIS databases for non-motorized facilities. So that helped in a lot of the site selection discussions, or for where we could put the counters. And then for phase 2, that evolved to a lot of other divisions. You can see here, I have a map, so we have a pretty good cross section across the state. And then also all the agencies, we had 11 different agencies by the end of phase 2, all the way through to the end of 2020, after complete installs. And there also, I wanted to mention that we also accepted data for entities that were outside the program, but wanted to submit their data. That also is inclusive of entities on this map here. So you can see the phase 1 and phase 2 entities are there. There's 11, Winston-Salem, Greensboro, DCHC, Durham, Brevard, North Wilkesboro, Duck, Charlotte, Davidson, Sanford, and then Campo. Campo being the largest amount of counters at over 20. Next slide. So a little bit about the technology. We were definitely early adopters. So in 2013, EcoCounter was the farthest along in terms of their technology, and it included the software packages, the customer service, and the equipment. So the equipment used in North Carolina is called the multi-systems. So that's a combination of the passive infrared pedestrian sensors. So those will be on the post. And then the inductive loops that can either be cut into pavement, or they can actually be pushed into crushed gravel. So there's plenty of studies that talk about validation and the accuracy of these different technologies. We have that as additional resources on our website, but you can also learn more about the counting technologies and the field results from just the North Carolina examples, and I included a link so you can copy it in there to the North Carolina Research Project. So historically, ITRI has been our main partner. They've been fantastic. I also included here, because I know this is being recorded, you can have the website here, which will take you to the NMVDP front page. And this is a great resource to talk about the start of the program all the way until to where we are now. and then any additional resources. So many different resources for counting equipment are actually located on this website to the best that we could. But you can also reach out to me if there's anything specific you would like to know about any of the counting equipment that we put in. Um, so in the future, so the program will be changing. I'm kind of jumping a little bit ahead here for my next slide, but we will be creating a new website, probably on the NCDOT Connect page for how the program will be changing. But we still plan on keeping the tree page for historical resources there. So the current status of the program, at one point we had 48 different counters installed across the state in different locations. So that includes 71 or so eco counter systems, right? Both the bike and the ped. And then we had an additional 20 that were municipal agreements for the data, MOUs. So as part of the program aging, a lot of the components had 2G and 3G components, and those had a sunset date, which meant that they would no longer be transmitting data. So NCDOT looked to upgrade all of the counters to 4G equipment. And so part of that is we asked everybody that was in phase 1 and phase 2 if they wanted to continue with the program. Essentially, it was considered a pilot. So if they felt that they wanted to continue and continue with the maintenance of those counters, then we would install the 4G components and new batteries for them. So a lot of the entities did continue. We're really excited about that. And then as part of those conversations, though, we did get feedback about the dashboard for EcoCounter, and Lauren probably will get into this too, but essentially we've created a lot simpler dashboard, a lot easier to use. I know we have a lot of professionals here on the webinar. One of the things that's really important is to understand that not transportation professionals are not always the ones that are using these dashboards. So you have city and board members, like in transit, for example, too, that want to look at it, and it's not super intuitive like it is for us. So part of our goal was creating a new dashboard that housed essentially now 13 years of data, and moving that over to something that was a lot easier to use, and then having a great partner like the Great Trails State Coalition to kind of lead that front of being able to advertise it, get people to use it, and really broadcast it out there pretty widely, because our goal is for everybody to be able to use this great data. I'm going to steal a little bit more of Lauren's thunder. I think we still plan to update. I think we were thinking about twice a year we will update the data with Lauren's VHB team. So my plug for you is if you guys are looking at exploring, any type of counting technologies, no matter what the vendor is, the new dashboard is vendor agnostic. So what we would love is for you to submit the data to either myself or Lauren, then we can update it in the dashboard, please. And then, so what's happening next? The non-motorized volume data program is not discontinuing. It's just changing. So for us, that means a partnership with the NCDOT Transportation, Mobility, and Safety Division. So there's a lot of great work happening on that side of the house, and we want to integrate a lot more with our partners on that side. We are finalizing a lot of what that will look like, but I think some early talks have been, if we can support a grant partnership for counting equipment, that is something that we would like to do. It is part of feedback we received for people that did not want to continue with the program with those 4G upgrades, like I mentioned, that they felt they wanted to try a new technology. Video technology is becoming extremely reliable. The cost is still rather high, but it is a good alternative. And so we're really excited about being able to partner with NCDOT Mobility and Safety and come up with ways where the program can still be extremely useful for entities. I think that might be the last one. So Lauren's going to walk you through the dashboard. Hopefully we can get a good live look. Why don't you take it away, Lauren? Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Yeah, so no thunder stolen. Michael did a great job, I think, of explaining why we did this. I'll show you the dashboard itself in just a moment. While hopefully y'all join me visit the Great Trail State Coalition website, and we can all have some live demo practice together. As Michael mentioned, this dashboard is set up not just so that it can be a much simpler way of communicating different measures of how bicyclist and pedestrian activity has been tracking at a different set of locations. Hopefully it's more understandable to the general public, elected leaders like Michael mentioned, but also I think this is really important. Eco Counter and their vendors, they're not the only way of collecting data. There's many ways and tools for collecting information. So creating a dashboard tool like this gives us the flexibility of absorbing data wherever it comes from and being able to present it in a much simpler format. EcoVisio is a great tool still for, especially if they're a local government who owns and maintains the count equipment or oversees the specific location. Really important to continue to monitor in real-time conditions at those count locations. So this is not that. This is not intended for a real-time dashboard, what's going on at specific locations, but it's capturing that 13 years of data, y'all. That's a lot that we haven't really even started to tap into and start telling stories about what does it mean? How many people have been using these networks and facilities? So now's as good a time as any to start summarizing, digesting that information. Okay, let me get into it. So if you're at the website, like I am, very simple. You look for this nice bold headline that the Great Trail State Coalition formed to advertise the dashboard. You just click on the dashboard link. I think Julie also put in the chat here a more direct link to this dashboard. And I'll give you all a quick tutorial about how this thing works. So there's a few buttons that may or may not be as, super self-evident. I'll point out one thing in particular, a couple features. There is a location map. The location map itself is zoomable. As you zoom into certain parts of the state, you can see what's going on with the other parts of the dashboard. It's reacting to the parts of the locations that you can see in the screen. I think that's pretty cool. So if you just want to look at a specific region, kind of see what's going on in that area, you're starting to see some aggregate measures based on that. So that's one feature. Through that feature, it also allows you to select a location of interest, and then you can dig into that specific location, click on a Google Street location if you just want to see what it looks like in real life. But then also there is a searchable list of all the locations within that across the state. And you'll notice these icons. So there's a purple-ish icon that's called non-Greenway location. That essentially means that counter equipment, like the photo Michael showed earlier, that would be typically on a street. So it's counting, in that case, pedestrians on the sidewalk, bicyclists on the road, or it could be a shared use path along a roadway. And then greenways are more of our traditional greenway shared use path system, not necessarily connected to a roadway. So there's a lot more of those, but there's also, again, there's a number of these on roadway locations. And that's also because the non-motorized, in the letters that Michael said earlier, that the volume data collection program was not necessarily only intended for collecting data about greenways, but really just to help track walking and bicycling everywhere. So anyways, just know that that's what those icons are all about. You'll also notice that there is a months of the year calendar that also breaks it down by days of the week. So depending on what location or set of locations you're looking at, think about this in terms of an aggregate measure. So this would be for that location or locations, summarizing them all and showing you what the overall activity statistics look like across a typical calendar year. And then you have year by year, this sort of line graph feature at the bottom right. This is most applicable, of course, to any locations where they've had counters on the ground for several years. When you go through this tool and you visit different sites, you're going to see that some of the sites don't have data going all the way back to 2014. That's because, as Michael mentioned in the timeline, some of those locations only came online a few years ago. So you'll see some changes in how that graph presents itself. I think for me, the most important part of this overall dashboard are these big feature numbers at the top, the weekday bicycle average and the weekend bicycle average. And then you'll see in just a moment, we have the same measures presented at the top for pedestrians. Again, these are averages. We've all been on a lot of greenways and networks out there. We know that a weekday and a weekend can look very different depending on the location you may be visiting. So the numbers are going to be different. And we think that this is going to be a valuable piece of information to share with elected leaders and others across the state so that people can just understand, how are people using these networks? When are they out there? How many people are out there? These are just raw numbers. So this dashboard does not say or put anything, stack anything above anything else. But I think if anybody is looking for statistics or numbers to help demonstrate, are people using these greenways and these networks, I'm pretty sure this dashboard helps answer that question. And I would say in a lot of cases, these greenways are extremely popular. We see it. If you're out there, you know it, you feel it, but now we have numbers to back it up. Okay, a couple more little features I'll point out. If you see this little gray bar on the left-hand side, it hides itself very well. But if you click on that, that also gives you the option of using different filters. So if you want to search by county, or if you want to search by municipality, year, month, weekday, or weekend data only, select days of the week, you can do that. One thing I'll just mention again, and this was, I think, very evident in Michael's map that he showed earlier. Obviously, not every county is on this list. So this is only for the counties or the cities where there is data. So if you're looking, why don't I have count information for Currituck County, for example, it's because there is no data, at least in the dashboard and or from the EcoVisio program, to feed in for that particular county. Do we think that we should have data collection from all the counties? I think Julie answered that question earlier. Yes. If we want greenways in all 100 counties, we should also have data about how people are using it in all 100 counties. So I think ultimately the goal would be to have data from every county and ideally every city that we can implement greenway networks across. So that's how the filter system works. And then I pointed out that we have a pedestrian and a bicycle options or toggles. I'll mention just to make sure that everybody understands that these are two independent dashboards. The pedestrian dashboard has its own set of data. I could nerd out on all this all day. There are millions of records. So that's why this is trying to simplify this. So there is a lot of information about pedestrian activity. And then separately, the bicycle count activity is in its own set of records. And then one other thing I'll point out, and then I'll do a couple dives into a couple locations. See this help button. If you need help, if you want to ask about how your data could be integrated into the dashboard or anything, if you're having any technical difficulties, you'll see my email address and then the email address of another colleague of mine. We're the people behind the curtains. So email us if you have any problems using the dashboard, but hopefully you won't. So let's go on a couple tours and then we can see if there's any questions or if anybody's got some interesting insights, and then we'll wrap it up with what we think this data can be used for. Certainly want to know how other people are thinking about this as well. I'll zoom in first in around Forest City. Probably a lot of y'all, if you go visit different greenway networks and systems across the state, you may have been to this. There is the Thermal Belt Rail Trail that's goes through Forest City. So we've thankfully we do have data for that particular site. And you can tell what happened here. So right now we're just looking at bicycle statistics for the Thermal Belt Rail Trail in these two locations. I'm just going to pick the one in Spindale for fun. So you can saw what happened there when I toggled under the location list. It zoomed into that specific location on Main Street. It zoomed in the data just to that one counter station in terms of showing what's going on across the months of the year. And then, of course, we've got years across the spectrum. I think this is a great example. Obviously, we only have about 5-ish years worth of data in this particular subset because we just either the equipment wasn't installed. We also know the Thermal Belt Rail Trail didn't exist forever, so it may have also started adding in data collection somewhat recently. If you see weird things like, for example, that 2023 graph, it's collecting data, stops in August, or you look at the 2019, it starts in September and just kind of ends in December. That tells you a little bit of a history about that particular location. Tells me at least that the counter was probably activated in September of 2019. And then I don't know what happened to it after 2023. So maybe somebody knows the answer to that, Michael may, but you know, there's stories here about what's going on. Anyways, what does this tell me? It tells me that in the summer months, the trail is most popular with cyclists at this particular location. Not shocking. Also, I see weekends are very popular. So, you know, there's some pretty intuitive trends going on here. So that's just one example of one site within one particular region. And Spindale is very different from a lot of other parts of the state, of course, as we know. So I'm going to jump over to the pedestrian one just to show a different example. And for this one, I somewhat randomly picked a trail in Apex just to kind of visit another part of the state. And so in this case, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the Salem Street location, which again, this one is not necessarily a strictly Greenway location, but just again, to show y'all some flavor about what this is. Apex is a much more developed area. We're in downtown Apex. If y'all have ever been there for any of the festivals or even restaurants or anything, you know Apex is a really happening place. This is telling us that on average, during a weekday at this counter location, about 1,300 people on an average day are walking past this counter in downtown Apex. More than that over the weekends. That all kind of makes sense to me because there's a lot more visitors, families, and so forth in downtown Apex. So I think this could be useful for a lot of reasons, right? This could be useful for downtown economic development, just overall kind of foot traffic information. It also is interesting. It's saying Saturday is a really big deal when we look at it on a day-to-day basis. So this could give us a lot of insights about a lot of different things. Another thing is this, as y'all can see in these annual line graphs, it summarizes it by month, by year. And one thing that's interesting to me is I don't know what happened in downtown Apex in April of 2024, but something did because a lot of people were there that month. That could have been a festival. So these counters don't turn off when they have a major festival. In fact, I'm pretty sure peak days in Apex happens in April. So that gives us a little bit of insight about what's going on there. Michael can tell you more about this. If anybody wanted to get way deeper in the weeds on this and know exactly what day any of these peaks happen, that's where you would really need to rely more on the EcoVisio tool for more of that detailed statistic. So that's just another very different example. And I think something that, you know, we honestly have just been kind of taking advantage of, that this great data has been out there for so long. So let's just talk about for a moment what we think this data could be used for, and then definitely we'll see if anybody has any questions or other ideas. I certainly think that this has the opportunity for providing data, information, and even reports to local officials and other community members. So again, If you work in Apex, and there's some questions out there about how active and when and where people are, I think this is definitely the type of information that can help address some of those questions. Another use for this, I think, is going to be summarizing data across multiple sites. So if maybe you're not necessarily with a locality, but you work at a regional scale, Michael mentioned Campo, or there could be others who work in many different parts of the state and in maybe more rural districts. What can we do to maybe even look at several sites at once and start to study trends? Do we think that there's a lot more activity in certain regions of the state than others, or maybe we learn more about how people are using this that we could start summarizing for other decision makers? I think a very important use of this data is going to be sharing it with state policy and lawmakers. As Julie went over the overall kind of program and goals of the Great Trail State Coalition, I hope that this information is useful so that legislators and other policymakers understand how actively these facilities are being used, start turning that into economic measures, and I think we're going to start seeing a lot more value as a result of that. Another application, I think, is going to be just increasing the overall visibility of greenways in the Great Trail State Coalition overall. Hopefully it'll result in more foot traffic to the coalition website. Hopefully it'll just increase more opportunity and awareness. Hey, there's a lot of, this is a new greenway I didn't think about visiting. Looks like it's popular. I want to go check it out. Another application could be just expanding the data collection program to document activity at other locations. Michael mentioned this. If there's a locality that is collecting data, maybe it is, maybe it isn't through EcoVisio. I think this opens the door for other data to be imported into it, and I certainly hope that that happens. One thing I'll just mention, and if you visit that ITRI website about the non-motorized program, you'll see a lot more presentations and tools that talk about quality control. It is very important that we standardize the data so it's all kind of speaking the same language. So if you're interested in sharing data, that's great. There will probably be some follow-up conversations about how the data is being calculated and organized and quality reviewed to make sure it's consistent. And then finally, I think this is going to be a great tool for advocates and then others who are trying to find new resources, tools, and hopefully funding for other Greenway networks to be built out. Because I think if you visit enough of these sites and you look at all the different contexts and locations, we're going to very quickly notice that if you ask the age-old question, if you build it, will they come? The answer is yes. So if we build more networks, then we're providing that opportunity to more communities across the state. So those are just some of the applications that we came up with for using the dashboard. Certainly, I'm sure you all have some other ideas about how to use it as well. And that's it for our presentation. We can take questions or do more fun demos if people have any questions to ask.
Thank you so much to both of you, Michael and Lauren. It's so exciting to have this. It's such an asset, such a resource. We do have a question that I'll lift from the chat from George. And I know you mentioned that these are two different dashboards between the pedestrian and the bicycle. So I guess his question is around, is there a way to link the two or to aggregate the pedestrian and bicycle data for a specific counter location, or to do the same for a number of counters that link together?
The answer, hi, George. The answer is yes. It is possible. However, the dashboard isn't set up to do that for you. So I think that's really more of we could put that into the list of dashboard 2.0 options or opportunities. I think another maybe easier, simpler way of doing it is if you have one specific location, you would need to look at both the bicycle and the pedestrian dashboard separately, drill down, visit the site, look at what the numbers are telling you. Currently, there's not a export the data tool in the dashboard. Also partly because there are, as I mentioned earlier, millions of records. So I don't think we want to make that it would create some challenges for people. But anyway, so I think the answer is yes, it's possible. But I think right now the way this is set up, you'd have to kind of manually collect the information on each dashboard and then aggregate it. But you know, something worth thinking about for maybe updated versions.
Thank you. I just popped a question in for everybody that's on the line. If any of you have used the dashboard, and if so, how did you use it or what did you find interesting? Feel free to come off the mute. Um, questions from anybody else are welcome. Has this data been used to inform activity estimation map?
I think I know what what she's talking about. No. Great idea. Michael and I could talk about data all day long. There's a lot of other data sources as well that we could tap in. And one thing that I think maybe to more directly answer her question is, as y'all could tell, we have a very, it's not a random sample, but there is not widespread coverage of counts across the state using this, the permanent counter site. So it's not really built in a way or set up to be able to inform a statewide activity mapping or demand. We need a lot more data to do that, which I think goes back to what Michael was kind of alluding to with the partnerships with other groups in DOT. Yeah.
Hi, Palmer.
Hi, this has been, I was just tuning in with my screen off, but this has been really interesting. And yeah, 2020 was definitely a big year. But it's interesting too. I was just thinking TDAs might be interested in it just to see where, I mean, they may know this intrinsically, but just where you see some dips by month and maybe boost your advertising or, your promotion about certain things, because sometimes it's more pleasant to experience a trail in a quieter time.
Mhm.
Right.
Very true. You could also turn this into a competition. I don't know if you wanted to, try to see who could have the highest activity in certain context on a year-over-year kind of basis. So I'm zooming in on duck because hopefully everybody's had the opportunity to go to ducks at least once in their lives. This is a very active place, and I think the numbers show it. So, it's saying that 700 and something people are just walking on the duck trail in the village area. If we converted this to a per capita, I'm pretty sure duck would be shooting up in the ranks.
Wow.
Michael, do you see George's question about
I
yeah.
do, yeah. George asked essentially, how could a jurisdiction or locality, start the process for moving their data onto this new dashboard? And George, that's just a conversation with us. You can email Lauren and I. We can get a one-time data download. We also, it looks like, oh, you actually have eco counters, so that's an even easier process for us. We can just talk with eco counter as long as you give them permission for NCDOT to and slash VHB to have the data. We can just use their API, and we can get that data very quickly. Oh, I see. Sorry, George. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, we can also reach out then to Concord. I think that would be fantastic. Essentially, like I mentioned, hopefully, the Great Trails State Coalition, being advertised on their website, you know, foster some more support and marketing in terms of the tool here, and we can, continue, hopefully at least twice a year to add all this data. There are definitely ones that I don't know about in terms of localities, MPOs, testing different software and hardware, and I would love to know about it. Even if you have, for example, a month or two of data, I think we would still be interested, right, Lauren?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the process is pretty easy. We probably just need to know that, you're interested in giving us the data, and we can get this, just email us and we can get it going. Thanks, George.
Yep. Short answer is we want your data.
Yes.
We'll take it.
I was like, trying to think of our federal partners that are, always at conferences, and he says, I'm data starving. Please send me all your data. But yes. And then also, if you're thinking about any type of counters in the future, there's some great resources on the ITRI page where some accuracy studies have been done, or if you're looking at, for example, maybe you just want PEDs or you just want to count bikes. Maybe there's a different technology that would be easier or cheaper, better for you than, for example, using EcoCounter. So there's a lot of different vendors that are now in this space, and the tool here, the dashboard, is supposed to be vendor agnostic. So if you guys find something that you like, again, we would love the data to be able to add it here.
Tracy's asking about the camera counts and how that gets sent.
So
yeah,
it would depend on the format for which you. So this is kind of something that we're coming into now, Tracy, is like it depends on what format then you get your data. For example, if it's used for vehicular movement, how are they processing the bike ped? Or are you using it specifically for bike ped? Are they then? Oh, are you coming off mute?
Yeah, it's easier if I come
Yes.
off mute.
Yeah, please.
We have a couple cameras on because we are in Mecklenburg County. I'm with the town of Huntersville.
Okay.
We just have a couple of Huntersville greenways where we have our cameras on there, and they do pedestrian bicycle counts, and I can get like a day average and everything. I was just kind of looking at it while we were listening to you all, but I didn't know how I would relay that over. But that's also probably just a side conversation with you all.
Yeah, we would love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's been extremely useful for you
Yeah.
guys?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah. See, this was the feedback we were receiving, that, entities were wanting to try different things, and I think that's fantastic. So that's great to hear. Thank you, Tracy. And we would love an email from you. I'll coordinate.
Perfect.
Lauren, I'm not sure you mentioned it. It's something very simple, but when you zoom in on the location map, if you're hard zoomed into one location, you can quickly hit that home button and it will do the extent for the whole state.
Yeah.
So just another thing that I thought about. So then you can toggle between bike and ped that way pretty easily.
I think
you're still there in Duck.
Well, then I went over to bike. So yeah, like this is what we meant by they are truly separate dashboards. So when you go back and forth between ped and bike, you'll have to maybe toggle that home button just to kind of reset it. Yeah, but y'all have fun checking it out. I think we've seen at least two places where there may be some data worth trying to add in. There's lots of other parts of the state where I think there's opportunity to add some information and data if it's available. And if it's not, I think hopefully we can figure out a way to make that happen.
Yeah, I think our next update will maybe be a little heavy. I think I have 4 or 5 that need to be added already, so that's great news.
Yeah.
In terms of the data itself, Lauren kind of mentioned it. There is sometimes drop-offs. It really can happen for a lot of different reasons. Not necessarily drop-offs in just the data. It's just like it stops on a hard date. That can be many different things. They decided to take, the location offline. It also is possible, of course, they have technical issues. One of those simplest things is the battery dies, and another one needs to be ordered. So you will see some instances like that. Another one is Lauren exactly mentioned it. Peak Fest is in
Mhm.
Apex in April, so like downtown is shut down and there are thousands of people. Sometimes 5Ks or different events on greenways can be recorded. These are actually fantastic to show increased usage during those events. It's a great kind of way to be able to know also how many people were there. Yeah, George
Mhm.
mentioned
Mhm.
that their batteries have died and they definitely have to be ordered. Yeah, it's a recurring thing that you need to track.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that's the only benefit of them being hardwired, but it's very unlikely to be able to do that on greenways. So it's basically only available for our sidewalk or street projects. Even then, sometimes it's an extreme challenge. But yeah, if there's any questions, if any of these locations are very specific to your entity and you have any questions about the data, please reach out to. We can. This one's supposed to be a lot simpler, like Lauren mentioned. We can actually dig in to hour by hour, 15-minute intervals. So we can see a lot more. But it is, like we said, it's a lot more to digest and is not as easy to use. So this is supposed to be a lot better um, for that. So
Thanks for having us. Hopefully this will be a useful tool and we'll get some more good data across the state.
Thank you. It's fantastic. And just I can only imagine that people would want their data to be added if it's not
Mhm.
in here. So thank you so much for making this resource accessible and possible and keeping it alive, um, and letting us host it. It's such a great tool.
And we'll share this recording out with in one of our next newsletters too, and that way people can understand how they could use the tools, the information.
Great. Very good.
Thank you so much.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
You have a good one.
All right, take
Thank you.
care.
Bye.
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 Bye.